Good evening to you. This is From the South, our evening news program. These are the headlines. South American and Arab leaders discuss the fortification of economic ties. A commission reveals new information into the death of former Palestinian President Yasser Arafat. And Spain's constitutional court has suspended a Catalan motion. We'll tell you how the Catalan government responded. The details on these and other stories now on From the South.
No en mi de la calle.
It is a pleasure having you here with us. We begin in South America with the South American and Arab nations, which are considering a Venezuelan proposal to build a joint development bank. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro made the proposal in the closing session of a summit of the two regions in Saudi Arabia. Under the plan, the UNASUR and Arab League nations would join efforts in financing projects that fall in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030.
We want to put into practice the idea for a joint development bank for the two regions, to provide investment in economic, technological and trade development between our countries. Secondly, we want to carry through the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals agreed at the United Nations to combat inequality and poverty and promote the well-being of our people.
Plan 2030, que hemos aprobado por unanimidad en Naciones Unidas en la lucha contra la desigualdad, contra la pobreza y por el desarrollo y la felicidad de nuestro pueblo.
The summit's final declaration gave strong support for the Palestinian cause and for a peaceful solution to the conflict in Syria.
There is need for a just and complete peace for the Palestinian people, based on legitimate international resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative, including the establishment of a Palestinian state within the borders of 1967, with East Jerusalem as its capital. We also state the need for a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria in accordance with what was agreed in the communiques of Geneva and Vienna, as well as the importance of a solution to the crisis in Yemen through the application of the relevant Security Council resolutions, especially numbers 22 to 16.
A potential national plebiscite on the final peace accord between the FARC and the Colombian government continues to be the main point of disagreement between the two sides. The government of Juan Manuel Santos proposed on Wednesday a law approving the referendum. The rebel group reacted angrily, claiming that they had not been properly consulted over how the vote should take place and instead demanded a national constituent assembly. In any case, the government says that any measure ending the country's half-century-long conflict would have to be supported by the FARC.
Congress is trying to push ahead, given the tight timeline we have, according to which the negotiations are to end by March 23rd. But that does not mean that we don't have to reach an agreement with the FARC over the mechanism for ratifying the agreement. The approval of a referendum is a contribution to making effective whatever we agree upon. It's an act of good faith.
Documents just released by the U.S. government confirm their view that the Mexican drug lord El Chapo Guzman is the world's #1 drug criminal. In a recently declassified document, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration revealed that the Sinaloa cartel is the Mexican drug organization with the most significant presence in the United States. It adds that El Chapo has, quote, facilitated a lot of American deaths through the violence of people that work for him, end quote. The Anti-Narcotics Agency also expressed concern about the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, which was initially financed by El Chapo to take on the Zetas drug cartel. And the conversation on opening the debate over the legalization of marijuana continues in Mexico. Our correspondent Clayton Khan has the details.
public and national debate over the decriminalization of marijuana in Mexico continues to heat up, with last week's historic Supreme Court decision to legalize the substance for recreational use for one specific organization of 4 people. Other groups are coming forward and launching injunctions on the same legal ground that the criminalization of the drug violates individual rights. Now, although Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto and other members of his cabinet expressed their staunch opposition to the decriminalization after last week's Supreme Court decision, they are now facing increasingly intense public pressure to hold debate on the matter. Yesterday, the Interior Minister Miguel Ángel Osorio Chong announced that a 3-stage national debate on the issue would be carried out. One with specialists, scientists, and academics, 2 with an open to civil society focused on the health impacts of marijuana, and the 3rd would be in the legislative chambers. Now, many supporters of the legalization of marijuana argue that beyond the minimal health impacts the drug may have on recreational users, the criminalization fosters Mexico's rampant corruption and violence, leaving what some estimates say are at least 100,000 dead and 26,000 disappeared since 2006 due to the militarized anti-drug war strategy. Now, even the organization that won last week's Supreme Court ruling has been public on their intention to not consume marijuana, but rather use the legal win as a building block to tackle prohibition policies that they say ultimately fill prisons or provoke violence. It's Clayton Khan reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
We now turn to Peru, where workers in the public judicial system have taken drastic action, hoping to be heard by the government. Our correspondent in Lima has more.
Justice is literally held up in Peru, with thousands of workers from the judicial power entering a second day of a nationwide strike to demand salary increases and improved working conditions.
The situation is the case overload. The lack of computers, lack of printing toner and photocopy machines. All of that is the product and result of how the judicial power is left at the bottom of the ladder by the executive power. Such is the situation that in the last 4 years the budget laws have been cutting the budget for the judicial power.
The strike will further delay the process of legal cases in a system constantly criticized by citizens as exceedingly slow and that is discouraging many from pursuing justice through the use of government institutions.
Today, November 11th, we had a hearing, but we practically don't know up to when it will be postponed.
This is going to keep being postponed all these days.
I've been waiting for 6 months on top of the 3 years that I've already waited for a result on the cancellation of the case. But nothing has happened. Tell me, what is this? How much longer? This embarrasses me and makes me waste a lot of time.
Workers' salaries have not increased since 2012, and they claim that if their demands are not heard, they will continue with the strike and the judicial processes will be delayed indefinitely. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
Paraguayan President Horacio Cartes advocated for a more effective integration with Mercosur, alleging that the Pacific Alliance, formed by Chile, Peru, Colombia and Mexico, has done better work. Cartes praised Chile, one of the biggest Paraguayan meat markets, which has signed more than 60 free trade agreements. Regarding his country, Cartes remarked on what he considers an important attraction, that it's the least expensive country for production in the entire region.
Each time we integrate more into Mercosur, it depends only on us. The conditions are not very complex. It is to be transparent, to be reliable regarding the agreements, and that's it. As a country, we are making our effort, and as a bloc, hopefully we can all make the same effort, because in the end, it benefits everyone to do things well, to build seriously and open the market.
The Honduran government is looking to add the recognition of God to its constitution. Human rights organizations point out that this is just a step forward in the creation of a religious state. We've got more on this for you with our correspondent Gerardo Torres.
A new addition has been proposed to the Honduran constitution, the recognition that God exists and the creation of a new currency with the sentence, "In God we trust," just like in the United States. The petition was presented by the Anti-Corruption Party, a new center right-wing political expression whose proposal can have strength in the legislative power.
When the state makes some religious beliefs their own and makes them become law, then it makes them mandatory for all the people that live in the state, even if they are not part of the predominant religion or of the religion that proposes that belief as a life parameter.
The petition presented by the Anti-Corruption Party is part of their political campaign in which they promise Christian churches to give them more space in the state. Experts believe that a secular state is a guarantee for democracy without any impositions.
Churches don't participate in the promotion of a secular state. It is the responsibility of the state to gain strength. Citizens have the right to have a secular state where religion doesn't end or is lost, but it's not the center of the country. Religion is a private matter, so churches have to participate in democracy. Of course, they have all the right to present their postures and their doctrines as citizens. Churches are part of the citizenship, but we have no right to impose. Being a plural and diverse subject, no church can impose anything.
Human rights organizations and other citizens organized groups have assured that they will try to stop this new Congress proposal. Honduras is a country with a 75% Christian population, and this gives a big power to churches, which now believe have stronger allies inside Congress to give another strong step toward the creation of a religious state. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Dozens of storytellers invaded a favela in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro last week with books to encourage reading in an environment where the habit is usually unwelcome. Brazil has 13 million illiterates, which represents over 8% of the population. Another 18% are functional illiterates, meaning they know the letters and numbers but do not understand what they read and do not know how to add or subtract. Dozens of volunteers went door to door delivering the books during the Literate Fair of the Periphery, which has been celebrated in Rio for 4 years.
Reading is very important, very important. For me, if you don't know how to read, it's like being blind, right? Knowing how to read is important. I myself make every effort so that my grandchildren know how to read, and thanks to God, all my children are successful in life.
Earlier this week, French Guyana launched a rocket carrying new communication satellites for Saudi Arabia's Arafat and the Indian Space Research Organization. The Arabian satellite will provide broadcast, broadband and telecommunications services over Africa, Central Asia and the Middle East. The Indian one is designed to deliver navigation aid and emergency services for India. And coming up after the break, we'll give you an update in Catalonia's secession progress from Spain. That and more next.
Comença la votació.
Wherever the news, you'll be there.
Rod stars G1 and Claudia de la Cruz are Rebel Diaz, hip-hop activists positioned within a history of political resistance through music. And you don't stop. They invite young people to express themselves about their social struggles. And you don't stop. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there. Caracas, Havana, Mexico, Quito, Washington, wherever the newsmakers will be there. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added his voice to criticisms of the European Union's decision to label the origin of goods produced in Jewish settlements. The EU, like the United Nations, regards such settlements on occupied Palestinian territory as illegal. It says that their move is to distinguish between goods made inside the internationally accepted borders of Israel and those outside. But Israeli authorities says that amounts to a boycott.
The labeling of products of the Jewish state by the European Union brings back dark memories. Europe should be ashamed of itself. It took an immoral decision. Of the hundreds of territorial conflicts around the world, it chose to single out Israel and Israel alone, while it's fighting its back against the wall, against the wave of terror.
There have been angry reactions to a video of a 13-year-old Palestinian boy bursting into tears during harsh Israeli interrogation. Telesudo's Noor Harazin has got that story. She filed this report.
The leaked video showing Israeli security forces interrogating a Palestinian teenager has sparked outrage and concern. The video shows Ahmed Manasra accused of allegedly stabbing two Israelis. It was broadcasted on Palestinian television on Monday, and many Palestinians say it sheds new light on the abuse committed by Israeli occupation forces against Palestinian children. The footage shows Israeli investigators swearing and yelling at the 13-year-old boy from Beit Hanina in Jerusalem. They call him a liar to force a confession out of him. The young boy is shown bursting into tears, and all he can say is, "I do not remember." Terrified, the slightly built boy confessed to the stabbing after the police showed him video footage of the incident, although he insisted that he could not remember anything and asked to be brought to a doctor.
These are violations even according to the Israeli law because he is a child under the age of 14. The Israelis have been trying to speed up this trial before he turns 14. This video was leaked in order to scare the Palestinian people and children. It was a message to them. The yelling at the child and the psychological torture carried out against him by the Israeli investigators is a violation of conventions of the rights of children and also of Israeli law itself.
On October 12th, Manasra was accused of stabbing two Israelis aged 13 and 21, together with his 17-year-old cousin Hassan, who was shot dead at the scene by Israeli forces. Ahmed himself, although seriously wounded, was left bleeding on the road while Israeli soldiers watched gleefully and verbally abused him. Noor Harazin, Telesudo TV, Palestine.
The Catalan parliament is adamant on its challenge to the Spanish government and has announced that it will go ahead with the secession process from Spain. This after Spain's government, led by Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, filed an appeal earlier this Wednesday with the Constitutional Court to block the Catalan move towards independence. The Regional Assembly voted 72 to 63 on Monday in favor of beginning a formal process of secession to be completed within 18 months. Rajoy said that he is not going to accept that some people liquidate the rules, democracy and convenience handed out between everyone.
We have requested that the Constitutional Court agree to immediately suspend this resolution and all of its effects. And we have also requested that the Court personally notifies those who have the responsibility to apply any decisions they make of those decisions when they make them.
The Catalan acting President Artur Mas failed to receive the majority of the parliament to be re-elected as regional president following last September's elections. The leftist CUP party has repeatedly said that they would not give Mas their support, which is indispensable for an absolute majority. Turkey is requesting the support of world leaders for its plan to create safe zones in Syria to dissuade Syrians from fleeing their country. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was speaking to a group of business leaders in Ankara ahead of this weekend's G20 summit in Turkey. The president believes that safe zones would be able to house some of the 2.2 million Syrian refugees currently in Syria. The refugee crisis will be one of the main topics at the G20 summit.
Yani takip etmek suretiyle biz bir yerden talimat alarak ve birilerinin
Thousands of Afghans from the Hazara ethnic minority marched in the capital, demanding that the government do something in response to the beheading of 7 members of their community by Islamist extremists. The victims included 3 women and 2 children, sparking a national call for more security for citizens. The Hazara community have long experienced persecution by the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. EU leaders are hoping to curb the flow of migrants and refugees coming from the African continent. African leaders met with their European counterparts in Malta to discuss what can be done to halt the exodus of people crossing the Mediterranean into Europe. Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel said, quote, "We believe we must both combat illegal migration, combat traffickers. We believe we must also progress in the field of return and readmission policies. In exchange, the European countries must be mobilized for more economic development support, humanitarian support." End quote. After 5 long months, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari swore 36 ministers into his cabinet. Buhari has been criticized for waiting until September to name his ministers, at a time when the economy has been hammered by the fall in oil prices. The president called on the newly sworn-in ministers to focus on tackling the many challenges the country currently faces. New allegations of sexual abuse have emerged against members of the United Nations mission in the Central African Republic. 5 young women have raised complaints against the UN troops. 3 of them were under 18 years of age when the alleged abuse took place. Some of the women even became pregnant. Human rights monitors are warning that violence sparked by a political crisis in Burundi is in danger of escalating to mass atrocity crimes. Organizations claim that the president is using his position to threaten the opposition. At least 220 people have been killed and tens of thousands have fled to neighboring states since April, when President Pierre Nkurunziza announced that he would run for a 3rd presidential term.
The region and beyond.
And now a brief look at other stories making news around the world.
Tens of thousands of Polish nationals marched in the streets of Warsaw chanting Poland for the Polish and God honor homeland. The march marks the anniversary of Poland's return to independence after the Second World War. Myanmar's opposition party is expected to win Sunday's election. However, they may have to work with the military, which holds 25% of parliamentary seats. The party is led by Aung San Suu Kyi, who is constitutionally barred from being president. 8 South African former police officers have been sentenced to 15 years in prison for killing a taxi driver. The victim's assault had been caught on camera, where he died from internal bleeding after having been dragged behind a vehicle through Johannesburg.
Sepp Blatter has been hospitalized in Switzerland for stress. Reports are that the suspended FIFA president suffered what was called a body breakdown. That's according to his advisor. However, Blatter is said to be in good mental and physical state and may be released from hospital next Monday or sooner. Last month, Blatter began a 90-day suspension from his post in FIFA over allegations of corruption. One of the football world's most recognizable faces attended the premiere of his new documentary entitled Ronaldo. The premiere was held earlier this week in London. The documentary is a journey into the private life of the Real Madrid star, including confessions by his mother of almost aborting him, as well as his father's fight with alcoholism. The film also captures intimate moments with his son, whom he refers to as his successor. The carnival season has begun in Europe, kicking off in Cologne, Germany. Many travel far and wide to take part in the annual event, also referred to as the Crazy Days. And it's not hard to see why. Carnival is a time of individual freedom for many across the world, where people parade in the streets in activities not normally done at any other time of the year. And to close this evening, members of the Hindu faith are currently celebrating the season of Diwali. It's a period of introspection, prayer and sharing for many across the globe, and it all began in India. Diwali is also referred to as the Festival of Lights, a time when the epic battle of light over darkness is observed and when Hindu gods are revered most. One of the most recognizable symbols of Diwali is the diya, a small clay container which holds oil and a single flame, representative of the fact that although the light is small, it can conquer the darkness, especially when united. And that's it from us this evening. There's lots more on these stories and others on our website, telesurtv.net/English. From our news teams in Quito, Ecuador, and right here in Caracas, Venezuela, my name is Regan Veens. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.